In order to better understand what ecosystems are and what it is involved in supporting those ecosystems, we're going to have a quick look at the video I did outside around a golf course to see different biotic and abiotic factors. And after that, we're going to look at the four spheres and have a better understanding of the vocabulary to do so. So let's have a look at the video. Good afternoon, all of you. I decided to come and show you some of the different spheres we have in ecosystems. Just behind me, we have what we call the lithosphere with the rocks. We also have here the creek at the bottom, you can see. This is part of what we call the hydrosphere. And we keep in mind that part of where we live, the biosphere. So here we have a beautiful golf course. The biosphere is all made of the living organisms, either plants, animals, insects, and so on. And you can see here we have a beautiful evening. There's a sunset. We have the clouds that are ice crystals in the atmosphere and the atmosphere itself. So there we go. So let's see if we can review the words. We have here the lithosphere, and you could see by the creek the rocks. We also have the hydrosphere, which is the water here, and we have some clouds here as well. And this, with the blue sky, is the atmosphere. And all of these supports the biosphere. And look at this, we're starting to fall slowly. We have the biosphere, we have here a beautiful golf course in a beautiful valley where we are supporting life and its biodiversity. Now that we've seen the video, what is interesting is we were able, and I have a picture for you right here, so let's see if I can show it to you. Very nice. We could see that we have a golf course, and on the golf course here, we have a variety of factors. First of all, it's easy to see the biotic factors. We have, let's see, we see the mouse, we have here our forest in the valley, we see the grassy area of the golf course, we also see the trees on the other side of the valley. So this is what we call the biotic factors. It is the living organism in the environment. We even have a few people, I don't know if they are on the cart or just behind the tree, but there were some humans as well here. I saw squirrels, and if you watch till the end, I met a big beast in the form of a rabbit, and I'll show you, it's kind of a funny clip. Anyway, once we consider the biotic factor, we have to keep in mind that biotic factors are supported by its environment. So let's see what we have. So if we look at the picture right here, we can see, so as it was in the video earlier, we can see water. Water is abiotic. We have the sand here, some of the roads as well. And we can see some dirt. So here, if you look at the cliff right here, we have some dirt, which are part of what we called the lithosphere. So once the hydrosphere with the water, second, the lithosphere with the sand and the cliff, what's supporting life. And we also have what we called the atmosphere. So you could see here in the sky, it's made of air. In the air, there's also some water. And here we can see in the higher atmosphere, we have some clouds. So let's see if we can divide all of these aspects of our environment into a graph that we can easily understand. So the first one I like to do is the hydrosphere, because water is so important for us. So as we learn about ecosystems, as we learn about science, it's also very important to learn about the vocabulary so that you can communicate with others and understand the vocabulary and the definition behind these words. So when we think of the hydrosphere, it's everything about water. So we have water like this. Now the water can be liquid. The liquid, for example, we had in the video the creek, we have some water in the pond. There's also water in the oceans. These are excellent examples of liquid water. Next one, we have water that can be gas. So here today was a bit, you could feel the humidity in the air. When water evaporates and it stays in the atmosphere, it is water in the form of gas. But water can also be in the form of solid. And when it is as a solid form, it was, so when you look at the clouds, let's see if I can show that one to you. When you look at the clouds here and they're white, usually they're small ice crystals. So it is solid water. But also if you keep in mind that we have, for example, snow on mountain peaks, we have also the ice caps on the planet. These are made of ice. And in the winter, here in Ontario, we have snow and ice all winter long. Now, the other sphere that we have is called the lithosphere, as I mentioned earlier. The lithosphere is everything that is holding, is at the ground for all that exists on the planet. So basically we have the rocks. We mentioned the sand earlier. So the rocks, we have sand. We also have clay, but in the dirt, we also, in the soil, we also have minerals. So the minerals absorbed by the plants and the biosphere, it is very important to support life, but it is non-living, and therefore it's part of the lithosphere. Like this. Now we have the third one, and the third one is called the atmosphere. The atmosphere is the gas, the gas in which we live, the air that we breathe in and breathe out. It is the air on which birds and planes can fly. And in that atmosphere, we also have the clouds that are hanging above our head. And when there's too much humidity, it falls down in water droplets. When we have water droplets, it is part of the hydrosphere because we have liquid water. But we have in the atmosphere gases like oxygen that humans and animals need, carbon dioxide that plants need for their photosynthesis. We also have nitrogen, which is the bulk of our atmosphere. It's 78 to 80%. We don't use the nitrogen gas ourselves. On the other hand, bacteria use nitrogen, and there's a whole cycle that we're going to learn this year, which takes the nitrogen from the atmosphere and makes it as part of the soil to help plants. And the way we absorb nitrogen is through our food, plants and animals. Something else that we have sometimes in the atmosphere is what we call particles or particulates. So there's some particles and dust. We have pollen, we have all kind of particles going around the atmosphere. And what happened is this is part of the gas layer around our planet. We have the lithosphere, which is our planet per se. And then we have the hydrosphere on which life is based on. Now that brings us to the fourth sphere. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have 4 spheres, and the fourth one is called the biosphere. And the biosphere is everything that is living, and it needs all of these together. We need water to live, we need oxygen to be able to live as well, and we also need the minerals that plants will bring us and the support so that we can have our society and run nicely. So where does the biosphere fit on this graph? It fits right in the middle, right here. The biosphere cannot exist without water, without atmosphere, and without the lithosphere. Now, what is interesting is sometimes we always talk about biodiversity. We want to be there for the planet, for the living organisms. But we have to take care of the other 3 spheres. So that means that we need to be careful not to bring or not to create pollution or pollute water. Because when we pollute water, that affects our environment and all the organisms that need water, the organisms that live in water, but also us that needs water to live. There you go. Lithosphere. Too often we can pollute our environment by either having post-consumer products. Sometimes we can pour liquids in the environment. When we are creating pollution in our environment, what happens is the plants that use minerals to grow will also absorb the pollutants. And when they absorb the pollutants, what happens is we have the plants that are not running at their best. But since we do eat plants and animals eat plants, that affects the whole food chain. So we have to be mindful of that. And the next one is the atmosphere. It is important not to pollute our atmosphere because the biosphere needs that one too. So if you have the atmosphere and you are in an environment where there's a lot of industries, there might be extra use of oxygen for burning fossil fuels, increase in carbon dioxide and in particles and dust in the atmosphere. When the atmosphere is polluted, it affects the biosphere. So when we talk about the four spheres that we consider when we think of ecosystems, we need to be careful and not pollute them. And that's like a stewardship towards our environment. Now, we also talked in class about biotic and abiotic factors. So when we think of biotic, let's see if I can have a marker. So when we have living organism, it's about biology. We want to take care of the biosphere to be there for the biodiversity. Therefore, everything that is living is what we call a biotic factor. But not just organisms that are living. It's also after they die, so their remains, but also their waste. As long as we recognize where they're from, the animals, their remains, or their waste, it is called the biotic factor. On the other hand, when we have the abiotic factors is everything that is non-living. That means the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, and the lithosphere. It's all about the chemistry of the environment. Now, you have to keep in mind that if it happens, you have, for example, a tree, and a tree lives, is part of the biosphere. The tree dies and falls down. We have a tree trunk on the ground. It is still a biotic factor. We have the decomposers, worms, insects that come in and breaks down the tree trunks, and it ends up with small pieces of wood, of rotted wood. This is still biotic factor. On the other hand, if you give it a decade or two, what happens is that all these pieces of wood will disintegrate and will go back into the soil. When it goes back into the soil, it brings back minerals for the next plant. In that case, we don't recognize that it was a tree originally. And at that point, it is an abiotic factor. So these are things to consider when we look at the vocabulary. Now, it is coming to the end of our videos. Before you leave, you'll see I'm going to put a video in a few seconds of a beast. I saw a rabbit. I thought it was funny, so I'm going to put this small clip here, and we'll be back for the last message. Just got face to face with a beast, a monstrous beast, and if you can see, it is part of the biosphere. Let's see how close I can be of this amazing organism. Not quite afraid. Have a nice day. Let's see. On this note, I hope that you enjoyed our first video on our YouTube channel dedicated to science, and I will wish you a wonderful day. Take care.